Welcome to Survivor Debrief and another exit interview. Eden's away on holiday this week, so I'm stepping in for the exit interview. And unfortunately, we've got the beautiful Karen here with us. Loved watching you out there playing along, Karen. And I know in particular, Eden and both myself kind of thought at this stage in the game, you were both a very strong pick for us to win. So I guess just starting from the start, what was your casting journey like and how did you get onto Survivor?
This is my first time applying. I've been watching Australian Survivor since about 2016. But I'm international, so I only got my PR end of 2023. And
Cool.
like I kid you not, it was basically in my list, get permanent residency, apply for Survivor.
Well, that was
Like,
actually one Eden's original idea. He was going to try and do that for America. So you're in very fine company there.
that was literally it. I was like, they're like, oh, be your job, like, anything, career progression, all of that, Medicare. No, no, no. It was get PR, apply for Survivor. And then the application process rolled along and I like ummed and ahed it for the entire process. So much so that I think the application was due at midnight on May 2nd. And I kid you not, I had a half completed application at 11:30.
You shouldn't
Um,
tell people this. You should not tell people this. They should be getting it in nice and early, plenty of time to prepare. That's what we want.
but I think my answers were just so unhinged and erratic because I did it in half an hour.
Great.
So all that could sort of come out was just probably my authentic, genuine self. There was no sort of like thought process. It was just like, oh, yeah, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, this, and you're like, oh God, that's probably not the answer you should give. But
Seem to
I
have
don't know.
worked. Seem to have worked.
Yeah,
That's great.
that's what I thought at least.
Also wanted to know what was your strategy and your thinking before going out there, and then how did that change once you actually hit the beach?
So I think all of my strategy going into the game was pretty much how I play like sport. You go in with a game plan of knowing what your assets are, which is I was like, look, I'm a people facing person. I do that for my job day in and day out. So I think being social and interacting with people is probably something I'm good at. Um, from a physical standpoint, I'm like, okay, I've played a bit of sport. I've been injured and had about 6 surgeries since I last played any sport. So I think maybe physicality will be okay. Not amazing, but
Yeah.
okay. And then from a strategic standpoint, I was just like, all right, let's just be a good contributor around camp. Let's just be a good social person. Let's get a lot of connections. And then play the middle ground well up until a certain point that you have to really start amping up. And to be honest, I thought I was a goner like day two.
Yeah, right.
And every time I sort of progress, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not that bad at this. Oh, I'm still here. Okay, still here.
Well, you sort of started with the Coven, and that sort of worked really well for you, and then sort of moved on to the graduates. What do you think it was that made the graduates turn on you as the first person?
Well, I think it was sort of like self-inflicted in the sense, because like, so the graduate started because we all sort of agreed that we really wanted to play a strategic game. We all had the same sort of mindset around things, and we had this really good open-ended communication where we would go ahead with the plan. We would go filter out and get in more information from different people and then come together and share that information. So that's why the graduates worked initially, especially for that alley blindside. We
Mm,
went into it knowing fully well even if one of us left, we would still carry out the same plan. That was just the sort of blind trust we had with one another. But unfortunately, as we sort of progressed, AJ and I had real teething issues when came to information flow, which we had even before the graduates formed. Like AJ and
yeah.
I were talking to each other around day two. Um, and I sort of noticed that I was like, okay, like I would tell him to do something, and I'm like, that's a really don't do that. You don't have the numbers for it. And he would go do it, and then he'd come back, and I'm like, well, that blew up. Um, I told you so. And then it just sort of kept repeating. And then we went to tribe swap, and then once we got to merge, AJ and I had sort of really struggled. I'd taken so many passive aggressive petty swipes at him because that's
Yeah.
just me. And then we were just having too much fun pissing each other off. Um, and then it came. Let's rephrase it. I had too much fun pissing him off.
Yeah, okay, right.
Um, so, and I think moving ahead with the graduates, watching sort of AJ build, essentially an escape raft out of it with his connections to Kate and Morgan. I was kind
Yeah.
of thinking, well, you're really not fully in this. Like, it, I don't mean, don't make connections with other people because I had connections with other people as
Yep.
well. But you're making it like a very, attempted. Every time we went for Kate and Morgan, you'd be like, nah, I don't want to do it. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
this is becoming blatantly obvious.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about get them before they get you. And I was wondering, you really did seem to sort of have your eye on AJ for a very long time, and it never really came that you really got the momentum there with other people to push him out. Um, in terms of turning on AJ and Miles, what was your thinking there in terms of the timing for that? Do you think you left it too late, or should you have pushed harder earlier?
So the thing about the whole like buddy system is that the voting blocks were so fluid. You just got two buddies together and then you would just do a move and then that would split open and go somewhere else. So I think everyone's thinking, at least my thinking was, so I really wanted to work with Miles going forward. Um but I was so worried that I couldn't really do anything with Miles or like really trust him fully if AJ was around
Yeah,
because AJ was always going to gun for me. Um and sure, earlier around, so very early in Brain's camp 1.0, I did want to go for AJ, but I kind of went, okay, don't do this now. He's a bit erratic. He's doing all these things, but the graduates are starting to form. I think we can still work together because we work quite similarly. Went into tribe swap, and I'm like, okay, cool. We still think quite similarly, but you're giving me a lot of red flags. And sure, there was attempts at going at him. Um, the numbers didn't work out, and then we had, the non-elimination,
yeah,
where we really couldn't do anything about it. And then I think his sort of saving grace was Zara coming over, which really sort of like neutralized me because she was just like, shut up, just think long term, stop being a, pass ag little baby, just
yeah.
think. And I went, fine, okay, I'll stop. Um,
But there, that
and
long term
then
thinking kind of bit you in the bum a bit.
Well, yeah, and then I think like who knows? He was a very good shield, and for in tribe swap, I was like, all right, great, maybe going into merge, this would be a good idea. But the thing is, AJ did a fantastic job of sort of, you know, amping up his social game and bringing all these players in that were dead set loyal to him, which was
Yeah,
so surprising. And yeah, maybe I should have gotten him a lot earlier because I think I had a really good working relationship with Kristen. I had a really good, relationship with Logan. And in my head, logically, it didn't really make sense for them to turn on me, given the
yeah,
fact that I'd been, protecting Logan from multiple, essentially from about day 5, 6, 7. Essentially saved Kristen the vote before and then
yep,
saved Logan on 2 consecutive votes. I was like, so going forward, your path to the final 5 is much more secure if you go with me compared to the guy that is, systematically voted out both of your number one allies
yeah,
on several occasions and who will not be loyal to you.
yeah. And so, what did you see your pathway through to the end? What was your thinking?
So I pitched this idea to Kristen like ages ago, like very on when the rubble was settling. So PD was actually a big plan going into merge, so much so that we'd had sort of like cross map chats with each other
Yeah, right.
going during tribe swap, where it essentially said keep Zara and Miles safe. I'll do the very same for Kristen, which is why at that tribal where Zara's being pitched to go to Brawn 2.0, Jesse and PD say, oh, actually, Karen's got a really good relationship with Kristen. We'd actually try and want to foster that. So we're going to send Zara over.
Yeah, right.
That was purely the two of us sort of talking to PD back and forth, Kristen talking to PD, and all of us saying we'll keep each other safe.
Yeah, right.
So I built that. So my way forward, unfortunately, PD got voted out, which is why I was trying so hard to keep him in.
Yeah,
But my 5 setup was essentially Logan, Zara, Kristen, and I. Kalen was in there, and I think that was my biggest sort of failure in not realizing how, dead set loyal he was to AJ.
yeah, yeah.
And
Very, very understated Kalen's game so far.
yeah, exactly.
And
Um,
you have mentioned Zara a few times. I think Paulie could take a leaf out of your book in terms of a ride or die and how to treat them. What sort of brought you two together, and what really fostered that connection between you two?
So I genuinely struggled when I first arrived on like brain camp, and I went, oh my God, I have nothing in common. What do I do? What do I do? And like the coven was formed from me just panicking and being like, oh crap, what do I do? And then I saw these like, three incredibly, strong women, and I went, okay, cool. Going in there, let's figure this out. And Zara was one of them. And Zara was one of those people who is just effortlessly blunt and who will just speak her mind to you. And if I say something completely audacious and stupid, she'll go, "That is completely stupid. Don't do that." And I went, "Yeah, that makes sense. I won't do that." And in the same way, she'd go, "You're spiraling. Maybe spiral less. Come back." And it was so easy with her. Like we would communicate in like so little words. We'd just be having a group conversation, and she'd just look at me and sort of like nudge, and I'm like, and that's how we would communicate. Like
Right.
24 hours would pass and we'd come back together and we would have the same sort of, idea because she'd observed everything I'd observed as well. And she is such a like ruthless player. It's so fun to like just play with her, and it's great because she's my buddy.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's good as
and
well to have someone you can bounce all those ideas off and obviously both go out and then come back and share the information, which is really valuable. We only have a few
yeah,
more minutes left, just a few other questions. What did you think your best move out there was?
my best move. I mean, like both of them bit me in the ass, so I don't know if they count as best moves. The telling Logan to play her idol was like quite fun.
Yep.
Mainly because I did all of the math and I was like, okay, the split is not going to work in my favor. And like, AJ and Miles trying to block me and switching the vote to 6-3 instead of 5-4 was brilliant by them and really good at reading me like a book and knowing I would try something.
Yep.
But I think that was really good, mainly because I knew that Laura was someone that Miles definitely had,
Yeah.
penciled in as an end game player.
Yep.
And I knew Miles was thinking between Laura and I. So I was like, okay, well, if I get rid of Laura, win-win for me. You're never going to work with Logan.
Yeah.
Logan's probably very inclined to work with me. So I thought. Um, so this works perfectly. It is sort of, sticking my neck up. But, I was already out there as actively going against the graduates and AJ. So
Yeah.
I think that was
Yeah.
a good move.
Yep.
And then sort of predicting that in the next move that Miles was going to go for Kristen and then sort of steering the votes towards Paulie. I
Yep.
think that was probably good as well.
Yeah.
But
Well,
still
what?
beat me, so
Well, yeah. Following on from that, what do you think your biggest mistake was?
biggest mistake. Biggest mistake was probably definitely not understanding how, fluid Kalen's relationships were with everyone else, and also not realizing how close he was to AJ.
Yep.
Um, and that's a testament to Kalen's game. He did a fantastic job of being like, "Yeah, I'm rock solid with you." I thought he was a solid loyalty vote,
Yeah.
and
Right.
he wasn't. And then maybe the other mistake was just sort of not vocalizing to people what my like concrete plans were, much like AJ was doing. AJ would just say,
Mm.
"No, actually, you and I top three, top two, whatever." Whereas I'd go, "Okay, this is a potential five, and it can change," which was
Yeah.
like the honest truth. Like, but
Yeah.
I should have just been like, "No, this is it. You and
100%.
I."
We're all in. Yeah.
Yeah,
And when you first got out there and hit the beach, what do you think surprised you the most in your time out there?
it was really hard. It was like I'm
That's a
like
very
I'm
consistent
used
answer from everyone.
He's like, I'm used to sort of like, like going without sleep, going without eating, all of that stuff is what I do day to day. We deal with sort of like life and death situations all the time. And you think that pressure is something you're used to. But out there, it's just the paranoia. I remember day 31 was when I had my sort of like big paranoia spiral where I was like, oh my God, there's voices in the trees. Ah, and then you go, oh my God, I'm going insane. I'm actually going insane. And
Um,
then like that's when it hits you.
yeah, and that sort of the big Hail Mary you had in the final tribal council. What did you rate your chances? Do you think you could have pulled it off, pull in that five?
Like I think it was just about 99.99% adrenaline at that point.
Yep.
And like every sort of like logical fiber in my being was just like, shut up, just shut up. But like I think, and it could have just been my sort of overthinking, but like I found out the information about 30 seconds before we were going into tribal. I had no chance to talk to my people, and I kind of
Yeah.
went, okay, like what do we do here? If I stay, I'm probably still a goner next week. They're still gonna come for me. Like they've had so much opportunity to come for me and get me, and they haven't. So it must mean that my game's out there.
Yeah.
Um, and then in my head, I was like, well, if I go out next week, that's sort of like less of an opportunity to blow things up. Whereas I have a very good opportunity to blow things up right now.
Yeah. You don't want to
So
sink slowly into the sea. You want to go out with a bang. So
yeah, and
yeah.
like sure, and I think like logically in my head, it made sense for Logan and Kristen to flip straight over, and it made sense in my head for Kaylin, whose game
Mhm.
has been lacking in big moves, to actually make that jump as well.
Yeah.
Because that would be a huge resume move. And the
Yeah.
thing I pitched to them was that I don't care who you go for. You can go for AJ, you can go for Miles, but knock one of them off. Like,
Yeah.
just do it. It doesn't really matter. But look, my success rate there was about, I don't know, 5%.
Well, it was good. It was a fun final moment to have, I think. And just a couple of quick rapid fire questions to finish off. Who do you think's playing the best game right now?
AJ, hands down.
AJ, is there something that didn't make the edit that you'd like the fans to know?
I think like just the real beautiful relationships that we've all built together whilst on the island. Kaylin and I, Kristen and I, Kaylin and Kristen, everyone. We just have such funny, hilarious, intricate relationships. Even Zara and I, like none of that is shown, and I
Well,
think it's
well,
shame.
yeah, you mentioned it yourself, a bit of trauma bonding, I think, on the island. What are you going to take away from your time playing Survivor?
I think it's just like I'm a nihilist at best, and I have a lot of self-doubt, and I think doing something like Survivor has really sort of given me a big, I don't know, a big G up, and made me aware that I'm actually capable of doing things, and I can do things outside of my comfort zone, and I can be a little bit reckless and I'm a bit stupid, and I don't have to have all the control all the time.
Yeah, that'd be good to take away. And finally, more of an Eden question, but what is your favorite film?
My favorite film,
Yeah,
I have two, um,
I'll
A
allow
Blood
it.
Diamond
Blood Diamond, yep.
with Leonardo DiCaprio, and then Holes.
And what, sorry?
Holes, the one
Pause.
that where they it's with Shia LaBeouf, and he steals a pair of shoes and he gets sent away to this camp where they have to dig holes.
Sounds
No?
great. Sounds absolutely fantastic. I'll have to check it out. I'm sure Eden's heard of it. I have not, but I have seen Blood Diamond, long sleeve or short sleeve. Now,
Yes.
finally, we did love watching you out there, Karen. Like Eden and I said, I think you had a really, really nice journey. Thought you were going to take it all the way through to the end, and a fantastic final Tribal Council, which is a lot of fun to watch. So, congratulations, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for your time.